Hi everyone, welcome to English Today Journey. And hey, don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy learning English in a simple and practical way.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the English Today Journey. I'm really excited to see you here. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe so you can get daily tips that will help you improve your English, step by step. Hello, my wonderful friend. Welcome back to the place where we do more than just study English. Here, we grow as people while learning this amazing language. I'm really happy that you're spending time with me today because we're going to talk about something very interesting. Something that can completely change the way you learn and even the way you live your life. The topic for today is metacognition. Now, I know that metacognition sounds like a big, complicated word. Maybe you've never heard it before, and it might feel a little confusing. But don't worry at all. By the end of this lesson, you'll not only know exactly what it means, but you'll also understand how it can help you in learning English, making better decisions, and even improving your personal life. Let's start with the basics. So, what is metacognition? In simple words, it means thinking about your thinking. That's it. Yes, it really is that simple. Imagine that you could step outside of your mind and watch your own thoughts like they're a movie. You can see what you're thinking, how you're thinking, and why you're thinking that way. This is exactly what metacognition is. You're not only doing something, you're noticing how and why you do it. Let me give you an example. Imagine you are studying English vocabulary. One way to learn is just to read the words over and over. But if you don't pay attention to how your brain remembers things best, the words might disappear from your memory quickly. Now, let's try something different. Stop for a moment and ask yourself a question. Do I remember words better when I write them down, or when I say them out loud? Or maybe you remember them better when you use flashcards, or when you put them into sentences. Asking yourself these questions is exactly what metacognition is. You're not just learning the words, you're learning how to learn the words. You're training your mind to understand itself. Why is this so important? Well, most of us live life on autopilot. We repeat the same actions every day. We make the same mistakes again and again, and sometimes we don't even know why. But when you start using metacognition, something amazing happens. You begin to notice your patterns, your habits, and the way your mind works. And once you see these patterns, you can choose to change them. You can try new ways to learn or to solve problems. You can react less automatically and respond more thoughtfully. Metacognition is like having a superpower for your mind. It helps you become smarter about learning, smarter about making decisions, and even smarter about handling life's challenges. Imagine studying English not just for the words and grammar, but learning how your brain learns best. Imagine making choices in life because you understand your thinking, not just because you are reacting without thinking. That's the power of metacognition. So, as we continue our English journey together, remember this. Don't just do things, think about how you do them. Watch your thoughts, notice your habits, and ask yourself questions. The more you practice thinking about your thinking, the stronger your mind becomes. You'll find that learning English, making decisions, and even growing as a person can become much easier and more exciting. Welcome to a journey where you don't just learn English. You learn, how to grow, and how to understand yourself better. And the best part is, it all starts with one simple idea. Thinking about your thinking. Metacognition gives you something very special, a little pause between what happens to you and how you react. That pause may seem small, but it is powerful. In that moment, you can ask yourself important questions like, why am I feeling this way? Is this belief I have really true? Could there be another way to see this situation? Just asking these questions can start to change the way you think, step by step. This is especially useful when you are learning English. Think about those times when you wanted to speak, but felt shy or nervous. Maybe you got stuck, couldn't find the right words, or worried about making mistakes. Metacognition helps you notice exactly what is happening in those moments. It helps you reflect, understand yourself, and then try a different approach. It reminds you that you are not just learning English. You are learning how you learn and how your mind works. Today, we are going to explore this idea more deeply. We will see what metacognition really means, how it appears in daily life, and simple ways to practice it. By the end of this lesson, you will understand how it can make you a more confident learner, a better thinker, and a stronger person overall. Before we go further, let's look more closely at the word itself. Metacognition. Understanding the roots of a word can help us understand the word itself. In this case, knowing the parts makes the meaning much clearer. The word metacognition has two parts, meta and cognition. Let's start with cognition. This word comes from Latin. The Latin word cognosca means to know or to understand. So when we say cognition, we are talking about all the mental processes that help us know, learn, and understand things. Cognition is everything your brain does when it is working. For example, when you solve a problem, that is cognition. When you make a decision, that is cognition. When you learn something new, that is cognition. When you remember something, that is cognition. Even when you understand words or a sentence in English, that is cognition too. In simple words, cognition is the work your brain does to understand and process information. Now, let's look at the first part, meta. Meta means beyond, above, or about. So when we put these two words together, metacognition literally means thinking about your thinking. It's when you step back and look at your own mind, noticing how you are learning, understanding, and reacting. You are observing your own thoughts instead of just letting them happen automatically. When you use metacognition, you can start to notice patterns in your thinking. You can understand why you sometimes feel nervous when speaking English, or why some study methods work better for you than others. You can even use this awareness to change the way you learn and to choose better strategies that help you improve faster. Metacognition is not just about learning English. It is about learning how to learn, how to think more clearly, and how to respond to life in a smarter, calmer way. It gives you the power to pause, reflect, and make choices instead of reacting automatically. The more you practice it, the more confident and thoughtful you become, not only as a learner, but also as a person. So remember, every time you stop and ask yourself how and why you think a certain way, you are using metacognition. You are training your brain to understand itself, and that is one of the most powerful skills you can develop in life. Cognition is simply the way your brain works in the world. It is your mind in action. Everything your brain does when it is thinking, learning, remembering, or understanding. Now, let's look at the first part of the word metacognition, meta. This comes from Greek and means beyond, above, or about. When we combine these two parts, meta and cognition, we get something like beyond thinking or thinking about thinking. In other words, metacognition is the act of stepping back and noticing your own thoughts. I know this may sound a little strange at first. You might be thinking, wait, you want me to think about my thinking? And yes, that is exactly what it is. Metacognition is like taking one step back and observing your own mind. Not with your eyes, of course, but with awareness. Imagine holding up a mirror, not in front of your face, but in front of your mind. You can see what is happening inside your head. Here's a way to picture it. Think about walking through a forest. When you are on the ground, you can only see the trees immediately in front of you. That is like normal thinking. You focus on what is right in front of you, without seeing the bigger picture. Now imagine rising up in a hot air balloon. From above, you can see not just the trees, but the rivers, the paths, where you came from, and where you might go. That view from above is like metacognition. You are not stuck inside your thoughts. You are looking at them from a higher perspective, seeing more clearly what is happening and why. Let me give you a real example from everyday life. Imagine you are reading something in English. Suddenly, you realize that your mind has wandered. You may have read the same sentence 3 times, but you didn't actually understand it. Has this ever happened to you? I know it has happened to me many times. Now, if you just keep reading without noticing what is happening, you won't learn much. But if you pause and say, wait, I'm not focusing. I need to slow down and read this sentence again, that is metacognition in action. You are noticing what your brain is doing, and taking control of your learning. Another way to think about it is this. When you are practicing metacognition, you are not simply reacting automatically to what happens in your mind. Instead, you are observing, thinking about your thoughts, and deciding what to do next. You are choosing your response instead of being controlled by habits or distractions. This skill is especially useful when learning English. Sometimes, you might feel nervous about speaking or frustrated because you can't remember a word. With metacognition, you can pause, notice what is happening, and try a new approach. For example, if you forget a word, instead of panicking, you might think, okay, I can describe it in a different way, or I'll try using a simpler word first. That simple pause can make a big difference in confidence and learning. Metacognition also helps outside of English. In life, it allows you to notice your emotions, your patterns of thinking, and your reactions. By observing your mind, you gain control over how you respond. You can ask yourself questions like, why am I feeling this way? Or is there another way to see this situation? This habit of stepping back and thinking about your thinking gradually makes you a stronger, calmer, and more thoughtful person. Think of yourself like a player on a field, but also like the coach of your mind. When you play, you focus on the game, running and taking actions. But as a coach, you step back and watch what's happening. You notice what works, what doesn't, and you think, maybe we need a new strategy. That's exactly what metacognition does. It helps you watch your mind at work, notice patterns, and make better choices. And here's something very important. A good coach doesn't judge harshly. A good coach doesn't say, you're terrible. Instead, the coach observes, reflects, and decides how to improve. You should treat your mind the same way, with curiosity, not judgment. Be kind and patient with yourself, noticing your thoughts without criticizing them. In fact, most of us already practice metacognition without even realizing it. For example, if you read something and ask yourself, did I really understand this? That is metacognition. Or if you think, this is hard for me, maybe I should try a different approach. That is also metacognition. You use it in small daily moments when you are learning, making choices, or even having conversations with others. Another way to describe it is mental self-awareness. Just like emotional intelligence helps you notice and understand your feelings, metacognition helps you notice and understand your thinking. And here's the best part. When you start noticing your thoughts, you gain more control. You can pause, reflect, and decide your next step instead of reacting automatically. Sometimes, metacognition is as simple as asking yourself small but powerful questions. Is this the best way to handle this? Am I being fair to myself right now? Why do I keep telling myself I can't do this? These questions help you step back and guide your mind in a better direction. But let me make something very clear. Metacognition is not the same as overthinking. Many people confuse the two. Overthinking is when your mind goes in circles. You worry endlessly, repeat the same thoughts, and take no action. It feels stressful and exhausting. Metacognition is completely different. It is not about drowning in your thoughts. Instead, it is about observing your thoughts carefully, understanding them, and using that understanding to improve your learning, your decisions, and your life. In other words, metacognition gives you the ability to notice what your mind is doing, pause, and choose your next step. It turns automatic reactions into thoughtful responses. And the more you practice, the stronger the skill becomes. You become more aware of your learning habits, more confident in your decisions, and more thoughtful in your actions. So, next time you feel stuck, nervous, or frustrated, remember, you can be both the player and the coach. You can act in the moment, but also step back and notice what your mind is doing. By practicing metacognition, you gain control, understanding, and the ability to respond wisely. Metacognition is a lot like checking in with yourself. It's like asking, okay, what is happening in my mind right now? How can I guide it in a better